Before TikTok, Instagram, or even Google, America in the 1980s was a completely different world. No smartphones, no social media, just neon lights, cassette tapes, and big hair. Let's step back into the decade before the internet took over. Part 1. Entertainment in the 80s. Entertainment in the 1980s was physical. Want to watch a movie? You had to rent a VHS tape from Blockbuster or record it on your VCR. Music lived on cassette tapes and vinyl records. Everyone carried a Sony Walkman to listen to on the go. Video games ruled in the arcades. Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Space Invaders. Home consoles like the NES were just starting to change living rooms. Part 2. Fashion and style. Fashion in the 80s was loud and unapologetic. Think neon colors, leg warmers, ripped jeans, leather jackets, and mullets. The bigger, the better. Lots of hairspray. Kids showed off their sneakers like Air Jordans. Adults wore power suits with padded shoulders. Part 3. Everyday life. The mall was the heart of teenage life. It wasn't just about shopping. It was where you hung out, ate at the food court, and maybe caught a movie. Phones were for landlines only. If you weren't home, you didn't answer. Answering machines were a fancy upgrade. Families gathered around giant boxy TVs to watch shows like The Cosby Show, Cheers, and Miami Vice. News came from the evening broadcast or newspapers, not from Twitter feeds. Part 4. Cars, travel, and culture. American highways were full of muscle cars, minivans, and wood-paneled station wagons. Road trips meant folding paper maps. No GPS. People still wrote letters, and kids traded baseball cards at school. Pop culture icons like Michael Jackson, Madonna, and Prince, and movies like Back to the Future defined the decade. Part 5. Technology. Before the internet, computers existed, but they were huge, slow, and mostly for offices. Apple and IBM were just starting to put PCs into homes. No Wi-Fi, no Google. If you needed info, you opened an encyclopedia or went to the library. Now it's time for a quick quiz. How many of these iconic items from the 80s do you recognize? Boombox, Rubik's Cube, Walkman, Nintendo, Game Boy, floppy disk, rollerblades, parachute pants, grunge, flannel, Nirvana, iMac, dial-up, AOL. Did you grow up in the 80s? Which part was your favorite? The bold fashion, arcade games, mixtapes, VHS movies. Share your thoughts. The 1980s were a unique time in American history. It was the era when big became bigger and excess was celebrated. A time when music defined generations and fashion was a fearless expression of individuality. But what made the 80s truly special was how people connected on a personal level. No algorithms, no filters, just genuine human interaction. The 80s were a simpler time when a handshake meant more than a digital. Like a handwritten letter could make someone's day. Life in the 80s may have been simpler, but it was by no means easy. The decade saw its share of challenges, from economic recessions to political tensions. But through it all, the American spirit of resilience and optimism prevailed. It was a time when communities came together to overcome obstacles and support one another. In the realm of entertainment, the 80s was a golden age. Movies like Back to the Future, The Breakfast Club, and E.T., the Extraterrestrial, captured the imagination of audiences worldwide. Music icons like Michael Jackson, Prince, and Madonna pushed creative boundaries and became cultural phenomena. And the rise of MTV revolutionized the music industry forever. Fashion in the 80s was a vibrant and eclectic mix of styles. From the bold and colorful to the edgy and rebellious, there was something for everyone. The era gave birth to iconic looks, such as leg warmers, shoulder pads, and statement jewelry. It was a time when people weren't afraid to experiment and express themselves through their appearance. As we reminisce about life in the 1980s, we couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia for a time that seems both familiar and distant. The 80s were a unique and unforgettable era that left an indelible mark on our culture, music, and fashion. It was a time when big dreams, bold moves, and larger-than-life personalities took center stage. The spirit of the 80s continues to live on in the hearts and minds of those who lived through it, and in the creativity and innovation of younger generations. Would you trade today's world for a trip back to the 1980s? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating journeys through time.